Marieke Vanloocke is our next speaker. We heard her name during Bart's presentation. She is advisor, accessibility, and universal design. She will talk about how heritage and inclusive experience is being linked to one another. She will give a couple of concrete examples of the Ensor House in Ostend and the Gruuthuuse Museum in Bruges. Marieke Vanloocke. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Marieke. I am 37 years old. I wear glasses. I have dark blonde hair. I studied architecture, but I have been working for 15 years now in the accessibility sector. My main job is providing advice on both public buildings and public domains. But today I want to talk to you about how we as advisors in Inter tackle inclusive experience. Accessibility in the museum context, that's rather general, is also applicable to new buildings and so on. So for us, it's important that irrespective of whether the building is heritage or not, that attention is given to accessibility. And we always base ourselves on the universal design principle, which was mentioned several times today. We are going to look back to the general principles. If we get a file, we look at accessibility in two ways. First of all, we have the physical accessibility, so the architectural and design aspect. On the other hand, we also have the content accessibility, the narrative of the museum exhibits and so on, the content that it should have. The physical accessibility was mentioned a couple of times today. Well, for us, that's a very important aspect. It includes structural adjustments, and we always ask ourselves if the building is actually fitted for the function that is provided and whether it has that load-bearing capacity in order to have the function that it was intended to have. Buildings need to comply with a lot of requirements today regarding fire, insulation, and so on. And is that feasible? That's a question that we always ask ourselves. On the other hand, buildings are often also used to offer that museum experience, which we should also take into account. And there we look whether the integral accessibility of the building is possible. We look for entrances, possibilities to reach the different floors and so on, that often in consultation with architects, building owners, also people from urban planning. The basis there is always the chain of accessibility. When the chain of accessibility is disturbed, then part of your visit cannot be guaranteed. And we sometimes see that it's not always easy to make the entire building accessible to wheelchair users. So especially for people who have reduced mobility, structural adjustments are needed, and those are not always impossible, unfortunately. Then the accessibility as to content, that is also very important, because when you design a museum experience, we always ask what is essential to ensure the experience, and what is the objective of the museum, what feeling do the people want and need to get. And that is the same for everybody, irrespective of the target group or whether you have any physical disabilities or not. But the target group for us is more than just people with limited mobility. Are there specific target groups for the visit that you organize? For example, the archaeological sites in Spain might attract experts that have a lot more knowledge than the normal visitors. A group of students, for example, or pupils should also get the chance to visit that site. So it needs to be for everybody, for the different target groups. And then let's look at the experience, the question that we ask ourselves. how can we create that experience for people missing one of the senses? So we want to avoid fragmentation. We want to offer everything in totality. So we push the different parties to look for the core story and to work from that. And we try to strengthen that in different ways. And we focus on the multi-sensory story. The more multi-sensory the approach is, the more it will be fitted for all of the target groups without having to add an extra offer. So that already makes it very integrally accessible. We are, of course, looking into how we can do that, because we can put it quite simple, of course, but how are we going to test that? Because in the end, we need to make sure that that everything fits and that everything answers to the many needs. So that is why we take our advices with us, and we go out there and we ask for a kind of assessment. We do a kind of listing of all the experience elements in that area, and we test to see whether all the elements comply with the needs of the primary target groups. And within those target groups, if there is someone with a certain disability, we check whether their needs are also filled in. Here you can see such an accessibility matrix. It's about the visitor center in Bulskampveld, the provincial domain, that was reorganized, and the designers took my advice, used that, and created this overview. This is just part of the Excel, by the way, but by creating this overview, lacks are identified, and we see that many things are okay for a lot of target groups, but for visitors with disabilities, there are still a couple of things missing. On the basis of that overview, of that list, we look for extra elements that can add to the story. Those can be extra things, but it can also be things that offer that added value for all of the target groups. That is why from the concept phase on, we speak about the multi-sensory approach in order to attract or include as many target groups as possible without all the extras that need to be added afterwards. Of course, this highly depends on the subject of the narrative, what you want to tell, and one museum is more suitable than the other, of course. An example, well, we heard it just a minute ago. It's not always that easy to bring that story in a multi-sensory way. And then heritage. Heritage is often the building in itself. The building is the experience often. And if the building is made accessible because of its heritage value, it should be made accessible for everybody. And that is how you create two types of cases. First of all, the heritage cases, whereby we have the ambition to make the building fully accessible. But then we also have cases for which we need to conclude that the building is partly or fully inaccessible, and it's not possible to make it accessible. One of these cases is the Ensor House in Ostend. It was a project within the Tourism Flanders institution. We were the advisors in this project, and the original house of James Ensor was opened to the public. So this is the Ensor House, but it was not accessible yet in the past, but because the building next to it was bought, opportunities were there to open it up and to improve the circulation and all the conditions. So that's actually what happened, and you see that it required a lot of efforts because well, there were a couple of limitations to the existing building. There is still a small threshold at the entrance that has been solved by a slight ramp, and also the intermediate levels between the different buildings need to be solved by platform elevators and so on. But in the end, everybody is able to visit these two buildings. The building is accessible for everybody. Next to the structural adjustments, we also had a whole focus on the signage in a friendly way, because in a user-friendly way rather, because if you change the route in a building, then it's hard for the visitors to find their way. So both on a tactile and visual level, we focused on the wayfinding very much. Every visitor needs to feel welcome and well, needs to be able to do his or her visit independently. And the third layer is the experience. So apart from the house itself, the works of James Ensor are shown, and this is in a very playful way. We have playful models that are accessible for the different target groups. We have maquettes with a very playful character. They are put at various heights, and they are very easily accessible for people with a mobile disability. Viewing elements are provided at different heights, so also short people or people in a wheelchair can look at everything easily. Well, a painter, I mean, works of art, paintings are very visual in themselves, of course. And that is why we also designed audio guides, including an audio description tool for the visually impaired. Provincial court, that was also discussed already this morning, and we had the same ambition there. We wanted to make the whole building fully accessible, and we succeeded in that mission. Again, the same story. The building in itself is an element of experience, but also the visitors center is important. So in the building, which already has a lot of value, which already gives a lot of explanation, you still have that extra layer of information, providing information on the province of West Flanders in general. And that is why the colleagues of Veld were also involved in the project. They set up this matrix looking into the different target groups, the different goals and requirements, and they also translated this into the needs for the tourists. And in blue you see what is still lacking. This is where we still need to work on together with the advisory group. So in the end, we can make sure that everybody can follow the story that is being told. And the column to the right is actually a list of general things thanks to which we can solve a lot of the things that are lacking. For example, audio description, audio guides, folders, and so on. And then we have the buildings for which we need to include that they will never be fully accessible, and for which we need to find alternative ways of experiencing them. Gruuthuuse is an example of that. Alexandra has shown us a lot of beautiful pictures from the interior. Well, Gruuthuuse is a very historical building that was built in several periods, and that means that we have a lot of variations in levels in the building. And from a very extensive study, it appeared that the interventions that were needed to make the building fully accessible would actually damage the heritage value, and that is why we decided to say Well, we have to conclude, unfortunately, that the building will never be 100% fully accessible, but we did do a lot of interventions, of course. So we have the new pavilion that is fully accessible, also the sanitary facilities in the adjacent building. The interior square is also a heritage zone. We have a comfort path there. So in the courtyard, offering a full accessibility for people who are less mobile, but the building itself is not accessible, unfortunately. Inside the building, well, my pictures aren't as beautiful as Alexandra's, I'm sorry, but these are pictures from inside the building, showing the experience for all the target groups. We have tactile elements, but we also have an audio guide with audio description. Also, Flemish Sign Language is available on that device, so that makes this quite accessible. However, so in a certain extent, it is made accessible for different target groups, for as many visitors as possible. There's many stairs in the building, so you are warned for your visit tomorrow. For people who can't take the stairs, we have an offer on Bruges.be to do a kind of virtual visit to the Gruuthuuse Museum, so that they can get a flavor of what the building looks like and what it was used for. Of course, you can't compare it to a real life visit, but we think it's a good alternative that is offered to people who can't go inside the building because they can't take the stairs. There's also a 360 degrees virtual visit that you can do. So there is a whole set of pictures of the different rooms, but you can also do a virtual tour of the Gruuthuuse Museum. So that's not only nice for people with a physical disability who can't take the stairs, but also for people who are far away. They can already have a look inside the building. And then my next example is the Mennen Gate in Yper. It's in itself a big remembrance gate for World War I, the last post. I guess you are familiar with that. It's played every night under the Mennen Gate, but the building is actually being restored. So we do not only offer advice for people who are not accessible, but also for buildings who are temporarily inaccessible due to restoration. For those buildings, we also provide a temporary offer to visit the buildings remotely. The target group of Mennen Gate is also an international group, is actually worldwide, because people from America or further than that often want to visit that place. It was also important for them or for their former family members. So that's also why it's a good thing to offer the visit remotely. And that offers opportunities for us, many opportunities for us to add that extra digital layer of accessibility. Their objective is not to provide an alternative, but to really develop the music of the last post, so it can be experienced by everybody, whether you are following it live or remotely. Also, the way in which they want to organize the visit to the monument. For example, the echo that you hear when you visit the gates, or the rustling leaves, or for example, that's actually an experience that they want to provide for everybody, also for the digital visitors. And we try to really focus on that to make that possible for everybody who wants to pay a visit to that site, for people with disabilities, but also with people who live far away. So that's the intention. It's the work in progress, and we hope that this is a good example for you to create that. So we hope that we can work on that further to link that digital story to the on-site experience. We have an annual report, and this year it was my turn to say something in that report, and that was actually what I said. This is a quote from me in the annual report, and there I say that the main goal of an inclusive accessibility and experience is actually irrespective of a target group or of people with disabilities. All visitors should experience the same story, and how this is realized, that is up to the wild ideas of the designers. So we map out what we want. That's the prerogative of being an advisor. We map out what we want, and then we leave it up to people such as Alexandra to provide concrete answers. And as you've seen today already, we have a whole lot of beautiful examples. Thank you, Marieke Vanloocke, about the marriage between heritage and an inclusive experience.